Hello everyone, welcome to your talking newspaper for Friday the 22nd of December 2017. I'm Howard.
And I'm Den.
Let's start with the society news for today then. On Tuesday, the weekly dolphin swimming session will resume. That's Tuesday 2nd of January 2018. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the dolphins, please call the society first to notify us of your swimming ability. The weekly coffee morning will resume on Wednesday 3rd of January 2018. This is held at Millbrook House. The coffee mornings are not just for blind and partially sighted people. Anybody can come along and have a cup of coffee or tea, as well as a piece of cake. The society coffee morning will be joined by the Macular Degeneration Group for their monthly meeting. The Owls will meet again in the new year on Wednesday 3rd of January 2018 at 2 p.m. at Millbrook House. The speaker for the meeting will be Paul Ferguson, and he'll be talking about aeroplanes. The group lasts approximately 45 minutes and is then followed by tea or coffee and cake. The Knitters and Natterers will resume in the new year on Thursday 4th of January at Millbrook House. The group meets from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. You can knit or just natter, then later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics. Other news? From Terry Mitchell. Dear readers, there will be no mailings of the Talking News on December 22nd. This is because envelopes are unlikely to be delivered until after Christmas. Instead, 2 weeks' news will be on the memory stick dispatched on December 29th. The Talking News for December 22nd will be available on the Society's website as usual that day. We're sorry for the delay this year. May we take this opportunity to wish you all a good Christmas and a new year. In addition to that there'll be no edition of In Touch today.
This is the scaffolding news. Please find a list of known footway obstructions for works including scaffolding or hoarding. We are unable to issue end dates as many are extended on a week-by-week basis, and there also included our table and chair permits that have been issued in the past week. So, Bay and Ventnor area, there is currently scaffolding at 70 High Street, Shanklin, Hambrook House, Hambrook Road, Ventnor, 3 Fort Street, Sandown. New scaffolding is due up at 4B Station Avenue, Sandown. That's due up on the 22nd of January. And new hoardings are due up at the former Carlton Hotel Esplanade, Sandown, due up on the 2nd of January 2018, and the former Wight City Culver Parade, Sandown, due up on the 8th of January 2018. In the Cowes area, there are currently hoardings at 70 to 73 Arctic Road, Cowes, and 93 High Street, Cowes. New scaffolding is due up at Red Squirrel Shop and Bella, 73 to 74 High Street, Cowes, due up on the 2nd of January. Max Aitken Museum, 83 High Street, Cowes, due up on the 2nd of January. And in the Newport area, there is currently scaffolding at 38 Key Street, Newport, 18 Lugley Street, Newport, Fujifilm, 79 St James's Street, Newport, and 4 Clarendon Street, Newport. The new scaffolding is due up at Domino's, 41 St James's Street, Newport. On the Bowling Green Lane is postponed. Readers, 33 South Street, Newport, due up on the 12th of February. In the Ryde area, there is currently scaffolding at Oasis Dental Practice, 9 Melville Street, Ryde. The Yar Bridge, 99 New Road, Brading. The Star Inn, High Street, Ryde. 69 High Street, Ryde, 8 John Street, Ryde, and new scaffolding is due up at the Suede and Leather Shop, 21A Union High Street, Ryde, due up on the 8th of January 2018, and the Castle Lodge, Dulver Street, St Helens, due up on the 12th of January 2018.
Now let's move on to the articles from today's county press. A multi-million-pound new breath of life is to be given to a top island hotel. The Priory Bay Hotel, Seaview, is the latest part of a £30 million investment in the island by Aria Resorts, the company that recently bought Rookley Country Park, St Helens Holiday Park and holiday cottages in Colwell. The Priory Bay went on sale for £3 million last September after the owner, Covent Garden Soup Company, co-founder Andrew Palmer was unable to solve the business's debts. It has a private beach, 44 bedrooms, 2 restaurants, tennis courts, a 6-hole golf course and a helipad. It will close for much of 2018, reopening in early 2019. A spokesman for Aria Resorts said the company had looked at several possible locations on the island and they couldn't rule out further acquisitions. We think the Isle of Wight is a fantastic offering, particularly for those looking for a staycation, which is becoming increasingly popular. Aria said Priory Bay would be aiming at a family market. Plans are still in the early stages, but the company hopes to retain the high-class reputation. No major structural changes are planned, but the inside will be upgraded and a spa and new restaurants installed. The company also owns the Bay Filey in Yorkshire, Gara Rock Resort in Devon, and has recently bought its other Isle of Wight sites. Aria estimates up to 150 jobs will be created on the Isle of Wight with this investment. Rookley Park is now under development with 20 new lake house premium lodges, 46 new caravans, some with hot tubs, and 30 newly refurbished premium cottages. As reported by the county press in October, around 70 devastated residents and holiday caravan owners were shocked to discover they were being forced to leave the park to make way for this regeneration. A spokesman for Aria said, "We continue to be in contact with the residents at Rookley and are working closely with local councillors and MP Bob Seeley to make sure we're offering appropriate relocation packages." Aria said previously it was working with councillors and MP Bob Seeley and will set aside 5 pitches for existing owners with a demonstrable need, for example a terminal illness. It will also assist other owners who are being moved. It will pay £1,500 for transport costs for caravans that need to be moved, or a one-off payment of £2,500 for owners who are not able to relocate. Although plans for the other 2 Isle of Wight sites are not finalised, a spokesperson said facilities at St Helens and Colwell Bay will be upgraded. Edward Andrews, the director of Aria Resorts, said, "Our aim is to build one of the UK's leading responsible holiday operators by investing millions of pounds into upgrading facilities on the Isle of Wight. With this expansion, we'll be creating many permanent jobs and contributing to the growth of the local economy."
Santa's back on track. Santa will take flight once again this Christmas Eve, thanks to a little help from Nettlecombe Farm and the county press. Last week, the CP reported the annual Santa tracker, run by the IW Weather Centre, needed £300 for upgraded servers to deal with the extra traffic. Last year, more than 1 million people visited the website to watch Santa as he made his way across the UK. However, the Santa tracker has been saved after Nettlecombe Farm at Whitwell agreed to be this year's sponsor, and they've even offered Santa the use of their reindeer, Comet and Dancer. Meteorologist David Carrington runs the Santa tracker, updating it between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve at iwweather.org.uk. He said, "It's taken such a weight off my mind and I can't wait to get the Santa tracker back up and running again."
Shanklin Town Council and Wightlink have been added to the National Toilet Roll of Honour following their success in the 2017 Loo of the Year Awards. Shanklin Town Council became the first council on the island in the 30-year history of the event to win platinum awards for its £150,000 public toilets at Tower Cottage Gardens and at Falcon Cross. There is nothing bog standard about the Swedish-designed loos, which feature fully automated heating, hand cleaning, a disposal facility for needles, and emergency facilities, which had the wow factor for judges. Shanklin's Mayor, Councillor John Gilby, accepted the accolades at a ceremony held in Solihull. When the Isle of Wight Council closed Shanklin's toilets in 2015, we held a public meeting to get community support, not just to maintain provision, but to provide the best facilities possible for residents and visitors alike. This award recognises the support our residents gave to this project, said Councillor Gilby. Alongside South East England in bloom, seaside awards, staycation recognition and £1 million investment in the cliff lift and funding for bathing water improvements, the Loo Award has ensured Shanklin remains a destination of choice for visitors and residents. Wight Link picked up platinum awards for its onboard facilities on the Portsmouth to Fishbourne car ferries, St Faith and St Clair, following an independent inspection.
Hopes for a better timetable. Timetable changes could be on the cards for Island Line train services. South Western Railway, SWR, is consulting on proposed changes on services to and from Portsmouth, due to come into force next December, and has agreed to look at Island Line too. Concerns have been raised about missed connections when travelling from the island. The move has been welcomed by the Keep Island Line in franchise campaign group and Isle of Wight Councillor for Shanklin Central, Michael Beston, who said, "We welcome this response from SWR. The current route from Shanklin to London Waterloo works well, and it is essential any changes to the mainland part of the journey is reciprocated by adjustments to both cross-Solent services and Island Line."
Ambitious plans to extend the island's steam railway into Newport Harbour and transform the area into a cultural quarter have been floated. At a packed meeting at Shanklin Theatre last Thursday, Island MP Bob Seeley voiced his support for proposals that could see the line extended to the town. It comes after Secretary of State for Transport Chris Grayling's announcement money could be made available to reopen branch lines closed in the 1960s. The track could theoretically be used by both steam trains and regular passenger services, linking the island's two largest towns, Newport and Ryde, by rail. The steam railway has not ruled out allowing public passenger trains to run on its tracks, provided they didn't interfere with its heritage railway operations. However, the tourist attraction has emphasised its priority is its long-standing ambition to run into Ryde St John's Station. Last Thursday's meeting was organised by members of Keep Island Line in franchise, the Isle of Wight Bus and Rail Users Group and the Steam Railway. It was held as part of a public consultation process on both the future of the Island Line and how the operator and steam railway could work together. Mr Seeley also reiterated his support for extending Island Line into Ventnor, as previously reported during the meeting. Proposals to extend the steam railway into Newport would see the line cross Fairley Road before running along the eastern bank of the River Medina to the harbour. Speaking after the meeting, Steam Railway General Manager Peter Vale said Island Line should focus on essential improvements to ensure services were sustainable. He said there were facilities and resources that could be shared, but the railway didn't have the resource or desire to take any level of responsibility for Island Line. He said the Steam Railway's priority was to run to St John's Road, but didn't rule out extending into Newport in the future.
Mean Thieves Take Gurnard's Knits by Laurie Little. Thieves have stolen the Christmas cheer from Gurnard. The village was yarn bombed by Gurnard's Knit and Natter group, who decorated the streets with delightful festive knitted items, but the group this week found some of the knits had been nicked. Perhaps spotting a free Christmas present, 2 of the 3 gnomes were taken from a tree on the corner of Worsley Road and the Avenue, and a garland was taken from outside Buckler's View. To take the gnomes, the thief must have been tall or used a ladder, as the items were high up in the tree and securely attached. Knitter Sharon Butt said, "We had a fantastic response to our summer yarn bombing and received lots of positive comments, as well as generous donations to our summer charities. Our Knit and Natter group decided to do a Christmas-themed yarn bomb, as it brings a great deal of pleasure to villagers and visitors. It's upsetting someone has helped themselves to our work, especially as someone had already offered to buy all the gnomes, so our charity has lost money too. A shame, because the whole point of this was to give the village something to smile about and to raise funds for charity. Yarn bombing Christmas cards by photographer Stephanie Mackerel were being sold in aid of Earl Mountbatten Hospice, and this item is accompanied by a picture of the lovely decorations, which are very colourful and intricate looking."
Support for a road bridge across the River Medina has been voiced by the leader of the Isle of Wight Council, Councillor David Stewart. Councillor Stewart made his comments at a meeting of Cowes Town Council last Thursday when he declared his personal support for a fixed-link road bridge across the river, saying the council was looking at the option strategically. Councillor Stewart was at the meeting to answer questions about the troubled £3.2 million floating bridge, which has been plagued with problems since it was launched. Speaking after the meeting, he said, "As you are aware, we have a clear regeneration plan for Newport Harbour. As we've spoken to investors and other interested parties, it's clear a fixed link across the Medina would be of benefit in a number of ways. I think we need to scope it out as almost a pre-feasibility study." Meanwhile, Pressure Group, the floating bridge stakeholders group, said a bridge across the Medina was fine as a long-term goal, but didn't solve the problem of connectivity for pedestrians between Cowes and East Cowes. The service was suspended while engineers sorted out issues including grounding, noise and cars suffering damage as they boarded and disembarked. It was brought back into service earlier this month for trials, but quickly suspended because of problems. It's now back in service. Meanwhile, Cowes and East Cowes branch of the Labour Party has expressed support for staff on the floating bridge. Will Matthews, Assistant Branch Secretary and Island Youth Officer, said, "We wish to recognise they're carrying out their duties with great professionalism and are facing enormous pressure as well as uncertainty about their futures and, in some cases, financial hardship."
Objections to lodges. Plans to build 12 new lodges at Woodside Bay Holiday Village, Wootton, have been met with strong objections from the Parish Council. At a meeting earlier this month, members said the lodges would be built in an area of outstanding natural beauty. They also warned of an increase in traffic and light pollution. Woodside Residents Association added its voice to the chorus of concern, claiming the plans would harm the distinctive natural appearance of the area. Island Roads has asked for the access road to the development to be improved.
A man was assaulted by a trio of suspected muggers. Police are appealing for information following the non-injury assault which happened near Victoria Recreation Ground, Newport, on Saturday. It's believed cash was stolen from the 52-year-old victim. Police said he met three men at Scarrett's Lane between midnight and 2 a.m. before walking with them to an alleyway next to the recreation ground where the incident allegedly took place. Any witnesses can call the police on 101, quoting 441 704 77865.
Hovercraft adds extras to timetable. Following a successful trial period, Hover Travel has added extra commuter services to its timetable. From January until the end of March, there will be 6:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. sailings from Ryde and 6:45 a.m. and 7:15 sailings from Southsea on Mondays, excluding bank holidays. These additional crossings help our customers get through their morning commute more easily, said Head of Commercial and Marketing Loretta Lale. We are always looking at how we can deliver an enhanced hover travel experience. Feedback for the early extension of services on a Monday has been overwhelmingly positive.
A prisoner who set fire to the Albany block at Her Majesty's Prison Isle of Wight in February 2015 has been sentenced to more than 5 years in prison. Dino Laximidas, 39, admitted committing arson recklessly when he appeared for sentence at Portsmouth Crown Court last Friday, December 15th. He was jailed for 5 years, 3 months for the offence and told to pay a victim charge.
Attempted murder admitted. An Island woman has been detained under the Mental Health Act after admitting a charge of attempted murder. Sarah Peckham, 42, of Cowes, was committed to 7 Acres, Newport, following a hearing at Winchester Crown Court on Monday. She admitted attempting to murder a child last year. The court heard Peckham had suffered a depressive episode and experienced psychotic symptoms. Mr. Justice Robert J. said he was satisfied Peckham would not have committed the offence had she not been unwell. He said, "I have no concerns for public safety once you have been treated." Peckham was made the subject of an indefinite hospital order.
Dippy, the famous island penguin, has died aged 22. Dippy, one of the oldest resident Humboldt penguins at Great Yarmouth Sea Life Centre, fell ill last week and died. The penguin had lived at the centre since 2015, having moved from the Seaview Wildlife Encounter when it closed. Dippy's demise will be sad news for thousands of his fans on the island, where he was so popular he even had his own website recounting his fictional adventures at the island's other tourist hotspots.
D-Bid essential, says departing tourist boss, by Alan Marriott. The Isle of Wight departing tourist chief has no regrets about the destination bid he launched to fund the island's holiday trade marketing. David Thornton this week announced he is to leave his role as Chief Executive of Visit Isle of Wight at the end of January 2018. The 54-year-old, who has been at the helm for 5 years, told the county press there was no real alternative to the D-Bid if we were to have a tourism organisation to market holidays on the island. We have already collected $375,000 as a marketing budget through the D-Bid this year, and that should rise to $440,000. We need those funds. Without them, it would be a case of tourism businesses going it alone. He also denied any suggestion recent pressure and negative social media comments had influenced his decision to leave the organisation he founded in August 2012. Some of the comments are personally upsetting, but I have been too busy doing my job to let them affect me. I honestly felt it was the right time to move on. I intend to stay on the island, which I love, and to play my music and find another role, hopefully within the tourist industry. Before moving to the island, Mr Thornton had positions in tourism in Blackpool and the Peak District. Asked whether a tourism or bed tax would have been a better funding option, he said he would be loath for the Isle of Wight to be the first place in the UK to introduce one, because of the message it would send that the Isle of Wight was the pioneer of tourism tax. He added he wouldn't say never to the principle of one, as it had worked well in Spain. Mr Thornton said his successor would be hoping the island's infrastructure would continue to improve and there would be a need to create exciting new opportunities to attract more visitors. He didn't think a new major all-weather attraction would be a cure-all. It would have to be different from other mainland attractions to attract visitors solely for that purpose. I think the island should sell itself on its festivals, beaches and natural beauty. That is what we do well.
The Bay Church of England primary school head teacher Duncan Mills has confirmed he will lead the new all-through school in Sandown. Mr Mills refused to be drawn further on staffing matters at the new school or controversial plans to axe the Sandown Bay Academy sixth form. However, he said the Department for Education, it's the DFE, was expected to make a final decision in January or February, giving the green light to the planned school. AET announced earlier this year it would close Sandown Bay Academy following condemnation of its management of the school, paving the way for the school to return to local authority control. Mr Mills said, "This has secured education in the community in Sandown, which everybody wanted. It's fantastic for everybody connected with education in Sandown. I'm very excited to make a success out of this." Efforts to secure secondary education in Sandown took a significant step forward last week when the Isle of Wight Council recommended extending the upper age limit of the Bay Church of England primary school from 11 to 16, creating an all-through primary and secondary school. The school will continue to operate on both the Bay Church of England primary and Sandown Bay Academy sites. Although news the sixth form would be axed provoked anger, the council said only 34 people responded to a consultation on the plans. Consultation responses will be considered today by the Cabinet Minister for Children's Services, Councillor Paul Brading. Providing there are no objections, the process of creating the new school will begin. Councillor Brading said, "We're now in a strong position to maintain secondary education in the Bay Area and thank all those who've worked so hard to enable us to reach this point."
Bus service to run on Christmas Day. Southern Vectors has published its Christmas bus timetable. General Manager Richard Tildesley said, "On Christmas Day, routes 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9 will be in service, running to a special timetable. Access to bus services on Christmas Day is a rarity across the UK, even in London, so we're very proud to offer one of the nation's most comprehensive bus operations. A Sunday service will run on Christmas Eve, Boxing Day, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, bar Route 6.
A university student who hanged himself was a kind, thoughtful lad, his father said this week. On Tuesday, an inquest heard the body of James Nicholson Noctor was found in the porch of his home at Moons Hill, Totland, by guests returning to a nearby bed and breakfast on August 13th. His father, Patrick Nocter, was resting on his bed with a bad back, oblivious to his son's death, until police officers came in and told him. The 22-year-old, who was due to start the final year of his biochemistry degree, had confided he was depressed. Mr. Nocter said, "James was a very kind, thoughtful lad, which is why I find his actions so hard to understand. I believe people have the right to end their own lives, and I just have to accept that." Coroner Caroline Summery said the case was sad and baffling. She said cannabis use and emotional immaturity may have added to his depressive state, but there was no evidence of a rational desire to commit suicide. She recorded an open conclusion.
Nigel stunned by night visitors by Joanna Hunt. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night to find tennis champion Tim Henman and comedian Michael McIntyre in your bedroom. That's what happened to Nigel Lane, formerly of Brading, who was featured in Michael McIntyre's big show on BBC One after Nigel's partner set up the surprise. After the gag, Henman gave Nigel his tennis racket, which he'd used at Wimbledon. Nigel, 24, who moved away from the island a couple of years ago, said, "My partner set it up for me and I had no idea. We were having a date night and I noticed the back door key was missing and blamed this on my mother, as she was the last one to lock that door. Little did I know my partner had given the key to the show's producers. Michael and his camera crew woke me up that night and I was in a daze. Some parts I cannot remember to this day. I thought I was dreaming until I woke up in the morning and saw Tim Henman's tennis racket at the side of my bed."
A powerful anti-drug drive message was delivered by the island's coroner in the wake of a fatal motorcycle crash. If any good could come from the tragic death of biker Peter Kilshaw after he smoked cannabis and crashed, she said it should deter people from taking drugs and driving. "This is not the only road traffic case I'm dealing with where cannabis has been found in the bloodstream," said Coroner Caroline Summeray. "I cannot say it directly caused the accident, but if you smoke cannabis and get behind the wheel of a car or on a motorcycle, it doesn't improve your driving skills. I cannot emphasize that strongly enough, and if that message gets across to just one person, it's an important lesson." A toxicology report said cannabis may have impaired Mr. Kilshaw's riding ability, but was unlikely to have had a major impact. Former soldier Mr. Kilshaw, 30, who served in Iraq and Afghanistan before leaving his service with post-traumatic stress disorder, lost control of his motorcycle on a bend in Corfe Road, Porchfield, on June 21st. Wednesday's inquest heard he died at the scene from massive head injuries after crashing into the side of a Volkswagen Beetle, his helmet flying off. Driver Paul Dyer said there was nothing he could do to avoid a collision as the out-of-control motorcycle came towards him. Efforts to save Mr. Kilshaw before the air ambulance arrived were given at the inquest, where the coroner concluded he died as a result of a traffic collision.
New boarding house plan comes under fire by Megan Baines. Revised plans for a controversial boarding house at Ryde School have been submitted to the Isle of Wight Council. Having already lodged an appeal after its previous application was refused last month, the school has now submitted a second set of plans which will be considered separately. They include changes to the design, with rendered cornices similar to other large buildings in the area, a softening of the exterior colour scheme, and a more regular appearance to the windows. An artist's impression can be viewed in the school foyer. The application states, in the refusal of the previous scheme, the only reason being given for refusal was design. There was no mention of any potential adverse impact on neighbouring properties. A wide-reaching neighbourhood consultation was undertaken, with neighbours' views taken into account. Changes were made to the scheme to limit impact as far as possible. This scheme, if approved, would ensure the long-term viability of Ryde School and would enable it to compete with similar mainland schools. The private school market is very competitive, and schools without sufficient boarding provision are at a significant disadvantage. Head teacher Mark Waldron said the school had considered alternative ideas put forward by residents, but none were suitable. Following months of discussions and redesign work, he said he hoped residents would agree the smart new building suited the area. But the Ride Against Boarding House campaign group said This application appears to have been rushed and continues to have many significant inconsistencies. The timing of the application is also controversial, as the consultation period now falls over Christmas, when members of the public and council staff are on their holidays. The application is very similar to the one rejected by the Planning Committee only 4 months ago. It will cause immense and unnecessary damage to the conservation area, the natural environment and lives of residents. The school seems to have no interest in arriving at a solution acceptable to all parties. There are much better solutions available for the town of Ryde. Instead, they want to bulldoze, pun intended, their plans through, almost as if it were a test of machismo. 95 years of goodwill and mutual respect between the town and the school is rapidly vanishing.
Pensions campaigners battling for fair treatment for women born in the 1950s attended a parliamentary debate on the issue and walked out of it. Women from the Solent WASPI, that's Women Against State Pension Inequality campaign, which has called for fair transitional state pension arrangements for women born in the 1950s following changes to the law, attended the Commons debate last Thursday. They joined more than 100 fellow WASPI campaigners from around the country who attended the debate, the 13th on the issue, while others demonstrated outside. MPs spoke about women who are unable to return to work because they have caring responsibilities, who have to use food banks or sell their homes to make ends meet, women who have contributed hugely to their communities and the country, while facing a lifetime of discrimination in earning potential and lack of opportunities to build a pension. When Pensions Minister Guy Opperman failed to offer any hope the government would change its policy, the WASPI women turned their backs and walked out of the public gallery. The Solent WASPI group said, "Our support grows and the government's shame grows too. Its shame grows with every debate and missed opportunity to put this right. Our campaign goes on. We are not going away."
Christmas joy for centenarian. Christmas will be extra special for great-grandmother Myra Verity this year. She turns 100 on Christmas Day. Myra now lives at Inverhouse, Bembridge, but she will spend her big day at her daughter and son-in-law's home to celebrate with family. Myra was born on December the 25th, 1917 in Adelaide Grove, East Cowes, to Dorothy and Watson Chapman. As there was not a phone or any transport available, her father rowed across the river to Cowes to fetch the doctor. She has 2 younger brothers, Oswald and David, both now deceased, and the family moved to Liverpool for 8 years when her father found a job there. As a child, Myra was a member of the Girls' Life Brigade and played a side drum in the band. Myra married George Verity at St James's Church, East Cowes, on August the 3rd, 1940. They had a long marriage and celebrated their golden wedding anniversary. George died 3 years later. The couple had 3 children, Michael, Pamela and Robert, and Myra now has 5 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren. Myra had many hobbies over the years, including keep fit, needlework, reading, cycling and gardening, and she worked as a dinner lady at 2 schools in Cowes. Myra was a member of East Cowes Methodist Church, and before she moved to Bembridge a few months ago, used her mobility scooter to get there. She enjoys living at Inverhouse, where she takes part in regular activities and outings, and her family said she was well looked after. Myra believes her long life is due to hard work, enjoying hobbies and having good family and friends.
2 more candidates are to contest Bob Seeley's Isle of Wight Council seat. Mr Seeley is stepping down as the Central Wight Councillor to concentrate on his role as the island's MP. Former engineer and science teacher Nick Stewart will stand for the Lib Dems, while the Green Party will field Freshwater Parish Councillor and software developer Daniel James. They'll stand against Tory candidate Steve Hastings. Mr Stewart, who lives in Bryston and runs a fencing club, said, "During the general election I campaigned in this area and met many of the residents. I have listened to their concerns on issues such as transport, the environment, social care and housing. The Liberal Democrats are the only party with the community at the heart of their policies. I want to make this council work for all the residents across Central Wight by giving them a voice." Mr James said, This by-election won't change the balance of power at the Isle of Wight Council, so it's an opportunity for voters to put aside their usual affiliation and vote for a councillor who will represent their views of our rural villages, putting the needs of local people and the countryside first. The by-election will be held on January 25th.
Hectic but happy. First Christmas with triplets by Megan Baines. Christmas is a busy time for everyone, but Torry and Andrew Stratton of Cowes have their hands particularly full this year. 3 times as full, to be exact. Their 11-month-old triplets, Ollie, Jake and Toby, are celebrating their first Christmas. But with more than 21 meals to be made every day, 3 outfit changes, numerous bottles and 2 nap times, the holiday promises to be far from relaxing. It's just very hectic, said Torry, while changing Jake and making faces at Toby. Torry is used to multitasking, so when Ollie begins crawling towards the door, she grabs him by the foot and pulls him back into the room without even looking up from Jake. It's not uncommon for us to crack open a bottle of Prosecco when we've got them down for a nap. Dressed in Santa suits in front of the fire, Torry and Andrew said they were looking forward to future Christmases with their new family. Christmas with children is just magical, said Torry. I'm looking forward to having us all on the sofa watching Christmas films, putting our Santa letters up the chimney and leaving out food on Christmas Eve. Andrew and Torry met working as paramedics and were married at Lapland 9 years ago. Andrew said a trip to Lapland was definitely in the triplets' future. If you want the spirit of Christmas, you can't get better than Lapland. It's going to be a family tradition. This Christmas, the triplets are also taking their first flight, heading off to a Scottish castle to spend a few days with extended family. Torry said, "For months I've been trying to plan how we will get everything up there. I think we've got 10 pieces of luggage." They will then be spending Christmas Day at Torry's mother's and have spent the past few weeks dropping off all the triplets' accessories. "We've got so much to take over, we won't be able to do it all in one trip," said Torry. 2 of the triplets are identical, although Torry said she hasn't confirmed with the hospital which 2. She said, "I can tell them apart, but when you're rushing, and we are always rushing, sometimes you realise you've got it wrong. If we mix their chairs up or someone puts them in the wrong place, that's it. You could be calling them the wrong name all night." The Isle of Wight triplets are slowly becoming miniature celebrities, having amassed more than 19,000 followers on their Instagram at Isle of Wight triplets, where they often advertise brands such as Mothercare, Eddie's Kitchen and Pampers, something Torry said comes in handy when they have to buy 3 of everything. "We get asked by loads of companies to use their products. We're trying to find car seats next." Their online fame means they're often stopped in the street by tourists. Torry said, "We had people come on holiday to the island actively to try to bump into us. The couple recently celebrated their 9-year anniversary. However, in the madness of the holiday, they both completely forgot. We only realised halfway through the day. It made a bit of a change from previous years when we'd always tried to go abroad." Andrew said, "The last 11 months have been hectic, but they've also been really funny, really emotional. We've laughed like we've never laughed before. It's been a real roller coaster." And this is accompanied by a lovely photo of the parents with their lovely triplets.
A councillor has resigned from Sandown Town Council, blaming his decision on the mayor's lack of leadership and a toxic and destructive atmosphere. Max Grandchamp said the council he sat on for more than 4 years was dysfunctional. In his resignation letter to the mayor, Councillor Raj Patel, he blasted him for stalling progress on important town matters. Mr. Grandchamp wrote, "Where is the leadership? Where is the vision? You're perfect at shaking hands, kissing babies and waving the mayoral chain. However, smiling is the easy part of the role. The more difficult one is making meaningful things happen. When chairing, you're there to reach a decision. Deferring matters to another meeting is not making a decision. You also resent having to use your casting vote for fear of upsetting anyone or getting it wrong. Procrastination is not a solution." Councillor Grandchamp said the council didn't listen to the views of the people of Sandown. Councillor Patel said Mr. Grandchamp had served the council well, but refused to respond to his criticism. "There's absolutely nothing wrong with the town council," said Councillor Patel. "This is a free democratic country and he's entitled to his opinions. Progress is being made on big projects such as the Broadway Centre, which we expect to move into in March, so the future is bright.
Donate to fund a future for Youth Trust. The Isle of Wight Youth Trust has launched its Fund Our Future appeal with help from Festival boss Rob DeBank. Rob, a trust patron, teamed up with Island MP Bob Seeley to launch the appeal, which aims to raise up $150,000 towards a new headquarters for the charity. Trust Director Mared Healy said, "Our headquarters have been home to the Youth Trust for over 32 years. Tens of thousands of young people have received help through the 3 counselling rooms we have here. But as demand for our services increases, the building is simply not big enough. Despite expanding delivery of our service into 15 outreach locations across the Isle of Wight, we are operating at full capacity. Waiting times have increased to 8 to 12 weeks, and we need to move to ensure our young people are able to access support. The building we've chosen in Pyle Street is 4 times the size of our current building, which will allow the Youth Trust to provide more counselling sessions and reduce waiting times. And donations can be made on their on their website."
Supporters of Age UK Isle of Wight took up the PPP Penguin Plunge in aid of those who have to spend their Christmas alone this year. 14 hardy individuals put their discomfort to one side so that others less fortunate have a more comfortable festive season by taking the plunge at Apley Beach Ride on Sunday. After spending a few minutes splashing about in the chilly surf, the swimmers, who wore penguin masks, warmed up with hot drinks at the Dell Cafe. Last year, the inaugural fundraiser raised £1,500 for Age UK Isle of Wight, a figure the charity hopes to match. This year's event was supported by Red Squirrel Property Services Newport. The proceeds will go to Age UK's local number 1 Should Have No One at Christmas campaign to support lonely pensioners with companionship, advice and support when they have no one to turn to. People can donate £3 by texting Noel 44 £3 to 70070.
Cash boost for groups. Groups helping to promote training and education will benefit from grants from the Isle of Wight Foundation this year. The foundation is jointly funded by Ringway Island Roads, Meridium, Vinci Concessions and Island Roads Services, which make up the partnership behind Island Roads. It is awarding more than $72,000 to projects that tackle social exclusion and promote training and education. More than £250,000 has been donated in the past 4 years. This year's recipients are Isle of Wight Beach Soccer, £3,600, White Horse Equine, £13,000, St Catherine's Speech and Language, £8,000, Porchfield and Newtown Village Hall, £9,000, Age UK IW, £15,000, the Bus Shelter, £5,000, the Monday Group, £8,500, the Wave Project, £10,000.
That concludes the first part of your talking newspapers for today, the 22nd of December. So it's goodbye and a very Merry Christmas to you all from Howard
and Den. Merry Christmas.
Hello everyone, this is Snara.
And this is Abraham.
And we're continuing to read the news. And we're starting with letters to the editor. The first one from Colin McCourt of East Cowes concerns no time for our towns to scrutinise Chain Ferry report. Last week, I attended Cowes Town Council to hear Isle of Wight Council leader, Councillor Dave Stewart's presentation on the floating bridge. What I saw was a council valiantly trying to get some answers to the many outstanding questions, and Councillor Stewart and his officers deflecting everyone with the mantra, "It will all be in the report," which will be ready in the new year. In fact, so many things are going to be answered in this report that it's beginning to take on the importance of the 10 Commandments. Councillor Stewart told us very little of what has been going on over the past 2 months when it has been out of service, and his main concern appeared to be problems with some puddles forming on the top deck and making the screens weatherproof and vandal resistant. It even looked as though someone else had written his report for him, as he had to ask John Metcalfe what CHC meant. In brackets, that's Cowes Harbour Commissioner. He also threw up an attempted smokescreen about the 2 incidents where floating bridge staff were abused or assaulted, saying it was not their fault the bridge wasn't functioning correctly. However, the 2 incidents were nothing to do with the new bridge. In fact, I've seen incidents like those he cited while the old floating bridge was in service.
Councillor Stewart continued to show contempt for the citizens of East and West Cowes when he pressed on a number of points by stating, "This is not a statutory requirement, this floating bridge." He appears to think the current bridge will meet the needs of Isle of Wight residents despite its many failings against the requirements. His long-term goal appears to be to get a road bridge somewhere upriver. However, he would still have costs for a launch service for foot passengers unless he determines he doesn't have to provide that as well. It then transpired, much to the surprise of the chair, who is also the chair for Isle of Wight Council scrutiny in January, the report would not be delivered to the Town Council until January the 2nd, despite Councillor Stewart previously promising availability by December the 21st. The timetable leading up to scrutiny on January the 9th was 2 town councils, having read the report, could then meet on January the 3rd and get questions to scrutiny. Now, instead of having 12 days to review the document, they have 1 day. The excuse used was that legal had to review everything and that it was all very complicated. This is a classic tactic used by many companies in the 80s and 90s to pressurize the reviewers in the hopes some things would be missed. Seems like our Isle of Wight Council hasn't caught up with the ethical companies of today. As a council taxpayer, I was very disappointed to see the ducking and diving taking place by the Isle of Wight Council members and their officers, but look forward to seeing this report.
A letter, Where Was Sensitivity? From Margie Hall, East Cowes. Your front page story on the 8th of December on the shambolic events at Fairview Care Home was essential reporting, balanced and fair-minded. It is all the more reprehensible that your unnamed reporter allowed themselves so much pejorative free rein in their reporting of the tragic death of Dennis Driscoll in the same issue, hoarder of papers who died in house fire. Was it really necessary to announce his death in that way? Do you write, say, drinker or shouter? In brackets, both arguably worse traits, in the headlines of others whose deaths you report. Why not retired factory worker? The whole tone of the piece was finger-wagging and disrespectful. Mr. Driscoll didn't have stuff. He had belongings. The fireman didn't have to walk on junk piles. One man's junk is another's memories. He walked on a collection of newspapers. Nor is it the coroner's role to make value judgments about another's way of life. Mr. Driscoll had done no wrong. Perhaps he had very strong feelings about the criminal quantities of waste generated by today's society. Remember, being different is no longer a crime. Surely the far more newsworthy thing to say was, a kind and sweet man, a rarity indeed. Editor's footnote. The county press sought to make no judgment on Mr. Driscoll. We carefully edit all inquests and seek to balance the public interest with sensitive reporting, and I'm sorry if Ms. Hall feels we did not succeed. Our reporters do not have bylines for court cases or inquests. Look up. Chimneys can be beautiful, and this comes from Sarah Burdett of the Isle of Wight Society. There are many gracious chimneys adorning the roofs of our Victorian buildings on the island. We should all start looking up more often, not just at the chimney pots, but also at the chimney stacks supporting them. Brick-built chimneys sometimes rise to the sky with elaborate brick patterning. The bricks can be the same colour as the building beneath, but with elaborate tops to support the chimney pots. Sometimes stucco has been used on the bricks. Regency architect John Nash was the first to develop a plaster of sand, brick dust, lead oxide and powdered limestone, which when applied to bricks gave the appearance of stone. John Nash lived on the island at his home in East Cowes from 1800 until his death in 1835. He used this stucco on many of his buildings, such as the Guildhall in Newport. By the 1840s, cement was added to the mixture. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert had Osborne House and its chimneys covered in stucco. While a portly Father Christmas may not be able to descend all these chimneys, they're certainly worthy of a second glance, or somebody to tell you about them.
So rude to Rooney. Letter from Gordon Pollard, Sandown. In searching for new and imaginative ways to describe the food they encounter, did Matt and Kat overstep the mark by telling us in their eating out guide last week that the gravy at the Woodman's Arms was as rich and thick as Wayne Rooney? I have no great interest in the game, but Rooney must have football intelligence in abundance to have been captain of the England team. He must possess the cognitive ability necessary for playing and understanding football at the very highest level. It is unlikely Matt and Kat will ever reach such a pinnacle of success in their food writing, and certainly not if they cannot find a more appropriate way of describing the gravy at the Woodman's Arms.
And following on with Save Our Tree from Anne Twining of St. Lawrence. Why is the magnificent tree at Wootton Bridge under threat of being felled? Is it in someone's way? The world needs trees badly to help to clean up our polluted air. It's taken 200 years for it to grow to the magnificent, majestic tree that it is, and will take about 1 hour to fell. How very sad. We need a very good explanation as to why this is necessary. We humans need all the trees possible on this polluted planet.
Don't give away plot in your reviews. From A. Barton, East Cowes. I regularly watch plays at the Apollo Theatre and went to see The Boudica of Britannia Street last week. I really enjoyed the play and thought the acting was of a very high standard. I was therefore interested what the Isle of Wight County Press review would be in the following day's paper. Although the review was positive, I was very disappointed the reviewer had decided to give details of the plot. A big part of this play is that the audience gradually learns about the characters, their backgrounds, and their situations. By listing out all the secrets in advance, I feel this would have spoiled the viewing for anyone who had read this review before going along.
Ask questions about town eyesores. And this is from T.L. Lewis of Sandown. Isn't it about time the county press helped the current Sandown rejuvenation project by having a nag at the owners of the two disgraceful sites in prominent positions in our sad old town? I know the CP knows the sites I refer to because earlier this year it was in touch with the owner. When he and his brother took over the properties some 30 years ago, they said they helped to provide jobs for the islanders with these sites. We are still waiting.
Islanders support welcome. From Paul Herbert, Service Director, Island Road, Newport. I would like to thank island residents and businesses for their support, cooperation and understanding during 2017. It has been another year of intense activity as we continue our work under the Highways PFI to transform the island's highway network into one of the worst from one of the worst in the country to one of the best. In the past year, we have once upgraded all types of road, from the strategic routes to less busy rural roads, across all of the island's 6 districts. If the 117 kilometers per second of roads resurfaced this year were placed end to end, they would reach from Portsmouth to London. I don't think there can be any doubt the roads are in far better condition than when the PFI project began in 2013. But while this work has undoubtedly brought great improvement, there is, of course, much to do, and we are currently developing a plan of activity for 2018, which will be another very busy year. And we do acknowledge that such an intense activity does cause short-term localized inconvenience, which is why I am keen to place on record at every opportunity my appreciation for the assistance we receive from the island. In undertaking our work, we employ around 200 island people and provide work for many others, and I know they share this sentiment. So, may I wish your readers season's greetings as I acknowledge their contribution to our progress over the year.
And from David Brophy of Ryde, I support Ryde School. In this last week, I've been affronted by a number of posters attached like a form of graffiti to lampposts near to where I live in Westfield Park, Ryde. What a childish thing to do. Interesting to note, though, that these objectors don't say where they themselves live in Ryde or offer any local point of contact. It does beg the question concerning their conviction and whether they would actually be affected personally or whether they're just people who object because they can. They purport to highlight the apparent harm that may come about as the result of the proposed Ryde School. boarding house being built. I, for one, and many others like me, support the proposal to relocate the school boarding and build in the school grounds. The school brings much to the local community and is hugely supportive of all that Ryde represents and strives for on the island. Sadly, though, a few voices seem to value their selfish opinion over the good of the next generation, many of whom may choose to stay and live in Ryde or elsewhere on the island long after the objecting voices have gone. Please don't be swayed by their highly emotive and pitiful pleas. I imagine many won't even have children and have no idea what their single-minded selfishness will do by depriving these young adults of a more robust involvement in the local community by actually living in Ryde. There are always two or more sides to a story, and the self-centred objections of those heading up this divisive campaign don't represent the views of all. As for the poster graffiti, these people need to grow up and stop their pointless littering.
Trading field not level. From Jeff Manners, Newport. Have I missed something? Walking by the British Heart Foundation's charity shop in Newport High Street recently, I noticed they were displaying new articles for sale. On entering the shop, I was advised they were indeed brand new goods, with suitable price tag. Some of the goods were similar to those on display in local shops. How can that be allowed, as they do not pay business rates? Wondering if other charities were selling new goods, I investigated other outlets. Yes, some of us do, a shop assistant admitted. After me stating it was unfair on local traders who pay their rates, I got a right earful from this woman. What's wrong with that? I've got no time for local shops. It's dog eat dog in today's world, and that's that. Quite a few charity organisations pay huge salaries to managers, directors and promoters, to name a few. So it appears they are not short of money, yet they encourage people to staff their shops with non-paid employees. Don't local store proprietors care? Are they not interested in what I consider a miscarriage of trading practices? With wages to pay, business rates to find among other overheads, if I was a local store proprietor, I would be livid, demanding a level trading.
And from Anne Middleton in Shanklin, I am writing to say how angry I felt when I saw Earl Mountbatten Hospice had taken out a private notice asking islanders to vote for them on Red Funnel's website as a nominated charity. This was in County Press of the 15th of December. This is very unfair, and I hope they feel ashamed. We all know just how important the hospice is. My own father died in a hospice. But that surely doesn't give them the right to take out an ad asking people to vote for them. All three nominees are charities, and I do voluntary work at one of them. I won't say which one, as I don't want anyone to be pressured into voting for us, as surely this should be a fair and square voting system. I know it's only run by public donations from our visitors. It doesn't get any financial help from any organisation. In the past few years, this charity has been transformed by paid staff and volunteers. I know for a fact some of the staff get paid for only half the hours they work. Surely this is very wrong for one of the nominees to pay to advertise their plea for the nomination.
Looking back, 100 years ago, December the 22nd, 1917, the Bishop of Southampton launched an appeal for financial support from the island for welfare work among female munition workers at East Cowes and Cowes. One plant had seen the number employed rise from 200 to 800 women. He said, "The women of the nation have risen splendidly to the very great emergency, and it is particularly certain the munitions of war could not have been supplied except for the great work of women." The island war news was mixed this week. Among those reported missing or dead were PTE Private W. Barton, killed in action on the Salmonica front. Meanwhile, Private C. Brett returned the island after being shot in the thigh while serving in Palestine. Sergeant M. Gavin also returned home on sick leave after being wounded and gassed at the Battle of Cambrai. It was reported he was keen to return to the front line soon.
And 75 years ago, December 26th, 1942, in the middle of World War II, a former Cowes Works manager was awarded an MBE for his work during an air attack. Robert Stewart worked during an air raid in Devon and was commended for his leadership, courage and unshaken devotion during the raid. He was also commended for restoring production so quickly at the works following the air raid. And the Young People's Club in Chale held a dance to celebrate their recent purchase of a radio. The radio, paid for out of the committee's funds, would have played hits of the era, which may have included Bing Crosby's White Christmas, Glenn Miller's I've Got a Gal in Kalamazoo, and the Andrews Sisters' Strip Polka.
50 years ago, December 26, 1967, an export order worth £3 million, more than £51 million in today's money, was awarded to a Bembridge firm. The firm had to make the island's largest order to date for 52 Islander aircraft. This would take up the majority of the 1968 production line. Ventnor residents and businesses raised concerns about the transport situation on the island after the previous snowstorm left the town cut off entirely. People had been left without milk and bread, and children were stranded. A telegram was sent to Barbara Castle, the Minister for Transport, pointing out alternative transport arrangements.
Well, 25 years ago, on December 24th, 1992, it wasn't just the Grinch who stole Christmas after a Christmas tree went missing from East Cowes. Jill Dexter, who owned the tree, was so angry at the theft she placed a poster in her porch window saying, "Merry Christmas to whoever stole my tree." The tree was decorated with a 40-year-old fairy which had belonged to Mrs. Dexter's mother. And the Isle of Wight was put on the government fast track to change the council organisation to a unitary structure. The previous structure was a 44-seat council and 104 seats on now defunct borough councils. It was believed the new structure would save £1.8 million annually.
10 years ago, December the 21st, 2007, A highly contagious stomach bug halted operations at St Mary's hospitals. Doctors were also asked to restrict visits to patients while an outbreak of gastroenteritis was dealt with. A proposal for a dog exclusion zone around children's play areas and an extension to the dog beach ban was dropped following pressure from the Kennel Club.
And on to Wight memories. Joy to behold St Saviour's stained glass. Donna Newnham continues her travels around the island's churches with a visit to St Saviour's on the Cliff. She has, thus far, notched up 58 churches, just past the halfway mark, since she started nearly 2 years ago. The main problem she now faces is that many of the remaining churches in towns are locked, except for when services are taking place. Now a popular speaker, as a result of her social history research, she intends to see out her mission to visit every church, hopefully by the time she's 50 in 5 years' time. It was on her list of 40 things to do in my 40s. It is hard to believe that before the Victorians made this island a popular holiday destination, many of the busier coastal towns were little more than small fishing or farming communities. This is certainly true of Shanklin, where the cluster of cottages in the old village surround the chine and pay testament to its origins. With the surge in population came the increase of demand on services, and this included churches. Shanklin was served by St Blasius, but the need for other churches was apparent and led to the building of St Saviour's on the Cliff. Land for the site was given by the lord of the manor, Mr Wight Popham, with the foundation stone laid in 1867. Although now surrounded by flats and hotels, St Saviour's is definitely a testament to Victorian grandeur. Its high-reaching spire would have easily been seen from afar, and its Gothic look was definitely in keeping with the Victorian fashion. Being built of soft local sandstone, the weather has not been kind to the exterior, and several restorations have been carried out. However, there are still some fantastic carvings to be found on the west wall. Although largely untouched by the Second World War, with the exception of some minor damage to some of its windows, St Saviour's has had other, more major problems since it was consecrated in 1869. The tower and spire, in particular, suffered with the addition of 8 bells in 1888, which have a combined weight of nearly 4 tons. By 1900, the spire was covered by scaffolding, and the bells could only be chimed, not rung, from 1925. As you enter through the new plate glass doors, the full grandeur of the church can be felt. The high, sweeping, vaulted ceiling and panelled roof is very typical of the Victorian era, leading the eye upward. The view down the church is to the nave and chancel with its 3 lancet windows. The carved choir screen separates the nave from the chancel, with the nave altar standing alone.
To the side of the altar is a beautiful brass lantern that features not the usual eagle, but instead has the 4 apostles. The east end of the south aisle has a memorial altar designed by MacDonald Gill for the men who perished in the First World War. At the time, this was the town's war memorial until the stone cross at Vernon Meadows was unveiled in 1920. The damage to the stained glass window above the altar dates from the Second World War. There are several other impressive stained glass windows in the south aisle. The detailed nativity scene, including star-worshipping children and angels, onlooking animals set against the backdrop of Bethlehem, is by Christopher Wall, whose works can also be seen in Canterbury and Gloucester cathedrals. A triple lancet window showing two saints flanking a Boy Scout is also situated on the south aisle. It is taken from a picture by Carlos called The Pathfinder, which can be found at Gilwell Park, home to the Scouting movement in London. To the right as you enter the church is the baptistry. The font was moved in 1903 and is topped by a splendid oak cover given by Lady Isabel Atherley. In both the baptistry and in the Gailey porch are other examples of stained glass designs by Charles Kempe.
And now on to my view. And the first part is written by Jonathan Young. Seeley stands aside for Battle of Hastings. So the starting gun has been fired on the election to replace Bob Seeley as an island councillor. For the good people of the central Wight ward, it has been a long wait. Curious news of Bob's impending resignation, coming as it did a full 6 months after his elevation to the Commons, wasn't so much announced as dragged out of him. The by-election is to be held on January 25th, but all the indications are that it wouldn't have been as soon as that had the Tory hierarchy, with its track record for self-serving secrecy, not become a tad careless, as well as more than a tad arrogant. It will have been perfectly plain to Bob from the outset that combining Westminster with the council presented impossible diary clashes. Full council meetings, and there are only 6 of them in a year, are held on Wednesday evenings. Parliament sits on Wednesdays. Parliament is hung. The whips need Bob to be there, and they generally get what they want. The figures bear out the predictable outcome of 4 full council meetings held since Bob was elected an MP. He's attended just 1. So on what grounds did our MP appear to think he could or should combine 2 such important roles? For the answer, we need to hop across the Solent to the Baffins ward of Portsmouth City Council. There sits one councillor, Steve Hastings, Conservative, then UKIP, then Conservative, majority 91, with the Liberal Democrats a close second. Natural enough, for a Pompey councillor, he lives in Brystone and sits on Newport Parish Council. He also unsuccessfully fought full-time Islander Julie Jones-Evans for her Newport Central seat of the Isle of Wight Council in May of this year, when, of course, he lived in Newport. Until Steve's Portsmouth term of office ends in May 2018, his party badly needs his vote in a tightly balanced chamber. But since moving to the island in August 2016, he's become known over there as the Phantom Councillor. In April of this year, when news of his Newport candidacy reached mainland ears, he was forced to explain that he'd never intended to run for Baffins in 2018 and had told his Tory colleagues so. There's a saying in journalism that the best questions to ask are those to which you already know the answer. I mentioned carelessness and arrogance, so how about this? Shoreham Parish Council, with no disrespect intended, rarely provides the stuff of which newspaper headlines are made, so that these extracts from consecutive November and December meetings minutes, under Isle of Wight Council might well have gone unnoticed, except they didn't. In November, Bob Seeley has advised that we are able to flag up any concerns via Steve Hastings, who is a former Portsmouth councillor and lives in Bristol. December, Steve Hastings introduced himself as an intermediary for Bob Seeley until more permanent arrangements are put in place. Okay. When an Island Wight councillor is indisposed, as Bob clearly is so far as serving his ward residents, there's a clear protocol for bringing in help. It's a non-partisan. It works well. I've used it myself as a resident, and it involves the councillor for a neighbouring ward lending a hand. It does not involve nominating your political pal who has no standing at all with the Isle of Wight Council, but who you're covertly prepping as your replacement. It does not involve referring to a by-election in which anyone can and should stand as a more permanent arrangement in the hope that people won't twig. And it does not involve keeping two lots of residents feeling woefully underrepresented for months on end for purely party political reasons. The startling similarity with which the people of Central Wight and Portsmouth Baffins are being treated reeks of arrogance, and in the island's case it suggests an assumption that the people who returned Bob Seeley with 75% of the ward vote can safely be treated with contempt. I very much hope it turns out to be an incorrect assumption.
Alan Marriott. Why are we turkeys about vegans? There is a joke that goes, how do you know if somebody is a vegan? The answer? Don't worry, they'll tell you within 2 minutes of meeting you. With the prospect of the roast turkey, chipolatas, gammon and the rest of the meaty treats fast approaching, alternative lifestyle choices are probably not on many people's radar, but several things have brought it in slap bang onto mine. The first is at Christmas with my vegan son, who came back from Brighton University with a serious plant-based diet habit and a degree in geology. The second was a footballing mate who, unlike most of our team's superannuated superstars, doesn't have an ounce of fat on him and puts it down to his ultra-healthy lifestyle. On our away trips, when most of us are tucking into pre-match sausage roll, he will nibble on a few almonds and maybe a stem of broccoli. So important to him is this life choice, he has produced a book about it. Not just the recipes and the vitamin details, mind you. This is a full-blown case study on why an animal-free diet is good for you. In the vegan build, Chris Brennan and his partner Emily Derry have put together a fascinating lifestyle manual for the non-meat eater. From charts showing the benefits of eating the good stuff to stern lectures about what is the right way to live a healthy life. This is a pathway most of us are a long way from finding the signs for, let alone reaching the end. I find myself thinking, can I, as I approach the tender age of 56, follow in the footsteps of my boy and my mate, can I give up the pasties and the roast beef for an undoubtedly much more healthy, ecologically sound way of life? Anyone who sees my picture in the CP will know I could do with a shedding a few pounds, and equally, if you saw two vegans in question, you would know there is more meat on a butcher's block, so the arguments are compelling. Yet most of the population pour scorn on veganism. I have been in a pub where, asked about the vegan options, the waiter said out of the side of his mouth, "Salad and chips." Is it really so hard for eateries to accommodate alternative lifestyles? For start, the tourism and economic benefits of welcoming to a growing sector are not to be sniffed at. I don't want to sound pious, credit, as I probably won't make the leap to the green side anytime soon, but it makes for a fascinating debate, and I have yet to found a counter-argument that holds any water, other than the one that says, "We like eating meat."
That's all I'm afraid we have time for today, and so it's goodbye from Sonara.
And goodbye from Abraham.